Thank you everyone for joining us for the Pride in Business Going Digital video stream here. I'm joined today by Brittney MacMillan, Carlin Koster, and Jerry Ty, three Calgary Realtors. And we're talking about how they have gone digital in the time of COVID-19. So to start off, could I get each of you to introduce yourselves? Why don't we start with Brittney?
Hey guys, I'm Brittney MacMillan. I'm a realtor with Homelife, Cityscape Real Estate. I'm a born and raised Calgarian. I went to school at U of C, and this is my 10th year in the business. And I work with my father, who's been doing this for like almost 40 years now.
Great, thanks. Carlin?
Great. My name is Carlin Koster. I'm with Redline Real Estate Group. Calgary for about 4 years, but Alberta my entire life. This is my third year going into the industry, and I know both of these lovely folks as well too. Let's do a deal together because always selling, right? Thank you for having us on today.
Right, thanks. And Jerry?
Hey everyone, Jerry Ty. I work with Maxwell Capital Realty, and this is also my third year into the business. I love it. It's something that, you know, I wake up and, you know, I enjoy doing very much, and, you know, it's the thrill of it. And there's also, I know we're in like a downturn right now, but, you know, you just got to keep working and just keep going. And I think that's what I love most about this industry. And also, like, you know, in any real estate transaction, we have, you know, another side of it, which is like, you know, realtors like Carlin or Brittney to work together to, you know, complete a deal. So it's the personal aspect of that that I really enjoy too as well. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again all for joining us for this. To start off with, I wanted to get an idea of how long you've been working from home or working remotely compared to how you might have been prior to COVID.
I mean, as a realtor, you're kind of always working remotely, as we can see from Jerry's shot there. Our car is like our other office. So we are always on the go, every quarter of the city, you know, that's just how it is. So it's not a huge adjustment in that sense, that we've always been set up to be able to move mobily.
Yeah, I agree. Many of us don't necessarily go and have a full-on office in our brokerages. I know that, for example, mine, we kind of focus more on just having a collaborative workspace if we need to, and then not being kind of chained to a desk. We can go out and we can collaborate, we can work together when we want to. So this is kind of par for the course when it comes to me in the business that I have. And I've got a home office that I'm sitting in right now that I've been delightfully working in since, I guess, the beginning of March, because as this started to kind of happen, I took a bit of a proactive approach and made some of the decisions that were happening around the province and the city myself, and started to kind of do it a little bit differently. And that included things like not doing open houses. And that's a big part of my weekend schedule anyways. So when not doing those, it kind of just forced me back into my home. And I took a little bit of time to kind of reorganize my office for a bit more efficiencies so I could be set down for as long as I needed to. And yeah, so almost 2 months now that we've been doing this, and it is what it is.
And Jerry,
Yeah, so,
obviously you're outside, so
yeah.
How has it been for you?
It's definitely been a lot slower in terms of getting outside. Yeah, today the last week has just picked up in terms of business, in terms of getting more busy, and I think the weather has a lot to do with it. You know, we've got clients who are kind of itching to sell, and it's just like springtime. And then, so, you know, but we're very cautious about meeting them too, as well as in terms of like, you know, wearing masks or wearing protective gear and all that. So, you know, we do take it seriously, but they, you know, still want to get on the market and everything. But in terms of like working in the office, I think I'm probably like home about 70% of the time now, compared to before. And so, you know, like, Brittney said, that our car is like our office. I do bring my laptop with me everywhere, and stuff like that. So I don't have a computer at home, just because before I never really worked at home too much, that kind of thing. But it's taking some adjustment with this pandemic, definitely.
Absolutely. And that sort of leads me into my next question there. And prior to recording, I was chatting with Brittney and Carlin about how realtors have been sort of at the forefront of how they market themselves within the industry as a sort of leaders in marketing for other industries as well, putting your faces out there quite literally on benches, on billboards, And in more recent years, obviously, across social media and the internet. So how would you say, for each of you, you've increased or changed your use of technology and sort of branding to support your business during the pandemic?
Well, like you said, Fraser, whoever coined the frame social distancing got it completely wrong. It is physical distancing. Businesses are more social than ever before. Their presence online, whether it's through websites, social media, all that online marketing has been more important than ever before. Realtors have always been at the forefront of that, because whether we're dealing with international buyers or, you know, someone that can't physically view the property, we are already adapted to those sorts of tools that we have. As of recent, virtual tours have been another one that's really come to the forefront. If you've done the Matterport 3D tours, they come and take a 3D digital view of your entire house, and people can, you know, go through it as close as virtually possible without actually being there. FaceTime's another big tool that we've been using as well. So, you know, photos, they've always been incredibly important, but there are lots of changes that are happening, and most people have already adapted to them. Otherwise, they're kind of catching up right now.
Absolutely, and you had some great points there, Brittney, as well. The brokerage that I'm in is quite technology savvy, and that's one of the things that they're kind of known for. So a lot of these things are things that drew me to there to begin with, where it comes to like the online social presence and the use of video and a lot of those different adaptations of how to use the traditional tools in marketing. So I don't think a lot of that has changed for me per se. A lot of the change has come down to how do I serve my clients? You know, when I first meet a client, my first kind of step with them is usually to go for coffee. And we talk about what they're looking for, whether it's on a listing or a buy side, determining if there's a good fit for kind of how I run my business and what they're looking for. And you use a lot of the body language that exists and the tone, and you pull that together, and that's that kind of first interaction, where now I don't have the luxury of doing so. So things like having a Zoom meeting where you kind of are going over the same conversation and still trying to feel out that relationship through the use of technology is what I think has changed the most for me. But again, a lot of the pieces that Brittney mentioned are great points that we have available to us. And fortunately, a lot of our suppliers already were set up with those same tools beforehand. So they're just kind of more important than ever now to be able to access and use them well.
Yeah, I agree with both Brittney and Carlin there. We do a lot of stuff before digitally already. And I think the adjustment is just like open houses that we can't actually go out there and meet clients. For example, I actually did a sale where like a client is in Toronto, like before the pandemic, she's in Toronto, and she just wanted me to call her on video chat and just show her condos around. So, you know, virtual showings like that, which we're kind of used to, but we just didn't really have to do them before, but it was an option available to us with technology. I come from a marketing background too, so I've always been marketing online. So it's really nothing that's crazy different for me. It's just, you just have to like do it a little bit more now than before. So that's what I think, yeah, for me.
I'm gonna say like the digital push probably happened 8 years ago, where you really had to have some sort of online presence. 8 to 10 years ago, everyone knows when you're purchasing a house, the first thing you look at is the photos online. So it's really important to have everything online looking in tip-top shape. And for me, having been in it a little bit longer, I did feel that digital push probably happening about 8 years ago, where it was like, okay, you got to get on board now. Time to ditch the BlackBerry. Let's get this done.
Definitely, yeah. And I think for a lot of folks, there is still value, obviously, in seeing a space in person, but to like you said, Brittney, that first touch point is going to be the online photos for a lot of folks. So it's one of those things that I think the realtor business has already been very set up in the way that you might conduct digital transactions, and probably where people aren't necessarily going to be comfortable with that is purchasing a home that they haven't seen in person. So have any of your clients been sort of resistant, or how have you found people perceiving these virtual showings and potentially making a purchase without physically seeing a property?
It's super important to have someone in your corner that you trust, and you know, I'm still skeptical about my clients buying something that they haven't seen, you know, whether it's a condo pre-sale or a new built home that hasn't been, you know, that you can't tangibly visit yet. It's so important to know the reputation of the builder, see other products that they've done. If you have an agent that you trust, I mean, they can go through the house and they should be pointing out these things to you anyways. So I still have a lot of clients that are skeptical about purchasing without physically seeing things. Is totally understandable, but I think it's kind of those initial touches that we're getting, you know, an agent to do a FaceTime preview of the unit with them. If they're genuinely interested after that, then they're going to schedule the showing. But, you know, they're not going to schedule 12 showings on a Saturday afternoon like we used to and just see what's in the area and see what's out there. Unless there's genuine interest, people aren't coming out to see these properties.
And that's a great point that you've made there about just having somebody in your corner. And that's the basis of what we do every single day, is looking out for our client's best interests. And I'd venture a guess that if the client's not there in person for the time being, we're all going to be even more critical of the things that we saw. So instead of just pointing it out and having a conversation face to face with someone that you're in the home with, you're going to take some really detailed notes and you're going to outline the kind of top things that you saw that are concerning. You know, I had a listing of mine right now, and they unfortunately didn't want to have the home shown because they were concerned, which is totally their right, and that's fine. And the buyers were only in town for 2 days. So what they did is the buyers and the buyers' agents pulled up in their car outside the house. I went into the home and FaceTimed them from the car outside as they were in the house. So they could almost walk through with me in real time and then ask questions, and they could see basically where I was and what I was looking at. And they were able to formulate their own questions. And then before I finished, we did another wrap up. And one of the conditions that my clients were going to look at is if they wanted to put in an offer, it would be subject to the buyer seeing it. They couldn't come in until they had agreed to an offer and a price. And that's something that can be done as well too, is that I had a client once that was out of the province that was relocating here, and they really wanted to buy, but we talked about it, and we had a condition where they actually had to go and look at the house before they could waive on the purchase. So they just made that one trip up for the inspection and to verify. And during that whole process, they actually decided to not buy that home from looking at it, and bought another house an hour later and did the same inspection for the same trip with a different property. You know, there's tools in our kind of wheelhouse that we can use to do that and to protect our clients while still giving them every opportunity to not miss the house they really want to get into.
Yes, I personally don't think anyone's really gonna buy anything from just looking at it online, and I personally won't advise them to do that, just because I think when you walk into a home, there's just a certain feeling that you get when and you know that it's the right home, and you don't get that from, either looking at like a 3D virtual tour or actually even what is that, doing a virtual showing. But you might get it where if the client can't come out at all, like when I had my client in Toronto, then she couldn't come out, but I made sure like we went through that place like 3 times just so that she can actually see it, just on the phone and stuff like that. So you are a bit more careful, but 99% of the time, I don't think someone's going to buy something from just looking at online. They might just, shortlist something instead of, like Brittney said, instead of booking 12 properties to view, they might book 3, that they've seen online, and for them to go into 12 properties, it's like 12 times the risk of them, catching the virus, right? So, if they can diminish that to like 3, instead of 12, that's even better. Like, and also like we were talking before, I think the buyers that actually come out nowadays are a little bit more serious in terms of buying, and they're not just like, looking around so they're actually coming out, taking the risk to come out, and so they're a little bit more serious in terms of buying. And so for me, I think it's a good tool to have in terms of like virtual showings and all that, but I personally don't think someone would buy something, and especially when it's one of the biggest investments of your life, and you're just looking at through. And a home is so different from photos compared to what you see actually. Like, sometimes I get this all the time, I'm sure you guys do too, where like, oh my god, it looks so nice on photos, and when we come in and it's like it's not even
we were actually
like
talking about that right before you joined us, Jerry.
Oh,
Carlin
right.
and I were talking about realtor witchery.
Yeah, exactly. So, you could do a lot with filters. Like we know Instagram, right? Most people don't look like what they are in real life, right? But anyways, yeah, yeah,
You're gonna
that's what
throw a filter on it.
yeah, so I'm gonna throw a filter on that, right?
We've
So yeah,
got
that's
the
what,
Drag Race season 1 filter on this video right
right?
now. It's
Yeah,
just, it's not, you can't see it, but we all look amazing. So
Perfect.
right. And yeah, so that's what I think in terms of buying a property when just looking at online. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah. It sounds like it's, by having the more cautionary buyer as a client, you're not dealing with as many sort of tire kickers or folks coming through that are just kind of there because, oh, I saw an open house sign on the block, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I was going to say the other key element is that a big part of buying a home is using all of your senses. What do you smell in the house? What do you see?
Yep.
What do you hear when you're walking around? Do you hear a close highway or a street? Going into the backyard and peeking over the neighbor's fences. What kind of neighbors do you have? Because these are all things that we see. If you're in a 2-story house, you're definitely looking out the window to see what you can see from other the neighbors. And sometimes a house could be perfect on paper. It looks great in photos. It looks great inside, and you just don't get that feeling inside. You can tell, and I watch all of my clients' faces just to make absolute certain that I'm recognizing what they're experiencing, and a lot of times when you can tell like this, because their face just changes, you might be getting them to take some notes. They put their notes down, they just start experiencing the house, and you know that they found the one. And that only really happens when you have all of your senses intact.
Earlier to the call, we were chatting a little bit about some recent numbers that have come out. So I wanted to get your impression on whether or not you think the ratio of buyers to sellers has changed significantly since the middle of March to now.
Well, it's been a buyer's market here in Alberta for a while, and I think it only got worse with this global pandemic with job loss. So my network, I had tons of people experiencing temporary job loss, and without a job, you're not getting any money for financing. So in that sense, I'd say, people wait for the spring market. They wait for the listings to come out. It's a bit of a frenzy every year, and this kind of fell right at the beginning of it. So, it's still very much a buyer's market. The buyers are maybe a little bit more few and far between. The listings, some sellers are waiting for this to end, put it on the market. Other ones are doing it right now because they realize that the buyers that are looking are motivated and genuinely interested in their property. So it goes both ways. In regards to numbers, April sales last year compared to this year was down 63%. So if you think of every 10 houses that sold last year in April, there's only 4 selling this year. So that's a huge, huge difference. Actually 3.5 houses selling. So the number of sales has dropped drastically. What it's going to do to prices in the end, we'll have to just wait and see. But I definitely say that it's a buyer's market out there.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you mentioned that I kind of liked about that was just that those that are out there that are looking are more specific. So there are people that still have to buy and move. There's people that are still guns ablazing because they have no choice. They may have been relocated or their house may have sold and they need to buy something. So what I found is that there's a good conversation to be had around just personal respect levels. Nothing is worse than a seller having 30 showings and no offers. And sometimes they get really discouraged. They put a lot of work into their home and about being able to show it really, really well. And when someone is going out to look at a house in an area and maybe they tack on a few more showings that just happen to be in the ballpark because they're there, that is stopped. So there's more of a defined line when someone's in your home. They're more focused on that being potentially their home. I'm sure that the two of you have your bag of tricks like I do in my car with paper towel, hand washing supplies, Clorox wipes, masks, gloves. We have all those things on hand. So when we do go into a property, we have some of the PPE and the resources to do so safely. I know that I've got a lot of hand lotion too because our poor hands have been getting the ringers at this point in time.
Oh,
Right? We're all in the same boat. But what's
yeah.
interesting is that one of the things that's most true about real estate is that it's different for everybody. Everybody's perspective of what's happening is very different. I've had folks that say, you know what, we're going to hold off. We're not going to do anything right now. We want to see how this plays out. I've got people that are spending all this time putting extra work into their home because they want to make it even better when this turns around. And I've got buyers that say, hey, you know what, mortgage rates went down. So they got pre-approved maybe 30 days ago before they kind of went back up again. And they're gung-ho about getting into a house. They see the opportunity that exists. You know, I look at a lot of the solds every single day. And one thing that I think is happening quite frequently is that a lot of the houses that are selling are the new listings. The ones that have been on for a while, a lot of folks have exposure to already. So because there's a more smaller pool of new listings coming on, they are getting snapped up a little bit quicker. And those new ones are harder to come by. I went out this weekend with clients, and 3 of the homes that they wanted to see in their first week on the market were conditionally sold within 7 days. You know, so when they found that one they wanted, they knew that they had to jump on it, otherwise they might lose it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with both Brittney and Carlin too. I think it is still a very much a buyer's market, and I think sellers, if they are gonna come on the market, they have to price it well. And for sure, there's not much new listings on right now. I have some clients who are just kind of waiting for new listings to come up, and there just isn't that much. And so, you know, but if you are going to try to sell, you have to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more realistic in terms of your price. But it, I feel like the actual market, like the Calgary is a very family-based market. So I find like if schools don't open or start opening, like we won't get that pool of buyers coming out, or you know, or sellers coming out, just because the parents are still worried about, you know, what they're going to do with their kids, or you know, they're worried about, you know, trying to find things for their kids to do. So I find like our market won't pick up until something happens with schools reopening or something along that line. I think we'll just be pretty in a low like this for a little while, where listings will start to come on, but very slowly. And then the buyers are they're looking, but you know, they might choose the property more quickly, like Carlin said. But we might not even have a spring or anything until maybe September. That, you know, when school starts to reopen. I think a lot of parents now, they're not worried about, you know, finding a home, where they're just worried about what I'm going to do with my kids, right? And a lot of like my clients are in that boat where they have to actually take care of the kids right now, instead of worrying about, you know, decluttering their house and all of that. And so it's even tougher too to sell right now when you have kids, because you know, when there's a showing, you have to take all of them out, right? And stuff like that. So I find we are still going to be in the buyer's market for a pretty long time, you know, until we'll see what happens after the pandemic, and if oil prices even go up to, you know, maybe $60 the norm again, or we'll see. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I guess so in that way, with less inventory coming out, people are obviously holding back from putting out those listings. Like you said, Jerry, if we aren't to see a spring boom right now, do you see something like that potentially happening later in the year, or is the spring boom just kind of not going to occur if even if the province begins to open up more over the next few weeks?
I think, you know, fall is a pretty busy time for us too. So, you know, in real estate, we try to bring listings on the market around spring or around the fall time. So summer, usually parents are on vacation with their kids anyway, so it's usually a slower time. But you know, if schools does kind of reopen during, you know, September, and the fall market does pick up again, I think activities will pick up. It's just like we don't know how much activity, but I feel like it will pick up during the fall time here. But who knows? We might get a late spring. We'll see what happens. Like, and I feel like people, they've been locked down for so long that they're just wanting to get out, you as well. And so that's, yeah. But if you're, to answer your question, I feel like it will pick up during this the fall time.
You made a good point there, Jerry, and I've been having this conversation with a few of my clients, is that I think we're going to see a bit of a shift in what people are looking for. You know, if you look at what companies are doing right now with the mobile workforce, essentially, and almost that transition to working from home on a regular basis, a lot of companies are putting infrastructure in place to make this a more of a reality. And they're going to start to see that they can do this on a more regular basis and give a bit more quality of life back to their employees, less commuting, working from home. Maybe it's even 2 or 3 days a week to give them more of that life back, you know. And I think when that's going to happen is people are going to say, well, what did I not like about my house? Or what was not efficient? Do I have room for an office? Do I need an office? Those that maybe lived downtown in condos and high rises that had just a small patio versus a yard. I think that there's going to be a short-term shift in what the consumer is looking for. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that be recognized on what's being purchased in anticipation for some of these measures going on long-term, and not just necessarily pandemic related, but business sense. You know, some companies can run leaner. They're going to try and take that as an opportunity to increase their bottom line. So I think we're going to see a shift in what consumers are looking for in the long term.
Totally. A ton of these businesses have to realize that they don't need to hold the overhead that they have been, and how many people can actually physically work remotely. They don't need the office space. I mean, my brokerage, we used to meet every Monday morning, coffee, find out what new listings were coming out, what's going on in the market. And now we're doing it with a Zoom meeting every Monday morning, and it's just as efficient, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And now, I guess on that note, have any of you experienced any new clients who have maybe found that desire to sell their home because they've realized that there are shortcomings there? Maybe they don't have a home office, or like you said, Carlin, they're living in a condo downtown and that's just not working for this new sort of way of living. So have you had any new business that came as a result of people having to work from home?
I personally haven't.
I've got one client that we were looking a few months back, and when things kind of went a little bit south in terms of some of the pieces of economy, they decided to hold back a little bit, but they were still in the market, and they've got some pretty specific needs for a home-based business. So we were just still kind of looking, but holding back. And we got into a good conversation a couple of days ago, and she kind of asked me what I thought was going to be the case going forward. And I shared basically what I just shared with the three of you right now. And I literally said, I think that people that are home and are realizing what shortcomings or things don't exist in the home that they want, it's going to be magnified, because once they acknowledge it, they're going to see it every day. It's like you go and think about getting a new car. You see that car everywhere. You put it into the world, you're going to see it. And literally the next day she called me and said, remember those people that you were talking about that are going to hate their homes? I'm one of them. I need to start shopping for a new house tomorrow. And we've now re-engaged our search because she just realized that how much she's not happy where she is, and she needs to get somewhere else.
Yeah. It's not new clients, but I have a listing coming up, and we're just re-strategizing how we're going to market it in terms of like outdoor space and home office and all that. So it's something that, I think I read an article somewhere on Realtor.ca where like the number two, like one of the two things people are looking for is home office and an outdoor space. Like if you're in a condo, you want a bigger, outdoor space if you were going to be locked down and all that. But yeah, I think it's an opportunity for us to, if we have listings, to kind of re-strategize how we're going to market that listing. And I think one of my clients, that's what we're going to do. It's just to focus more on the outdoor space and, and home office.
So for those people who may still want to get into the spring buying and selling season within real estate, what would be your top piece of advice for people during this time?
Well, if you're a buyer, my personal opinion, it's a great time to buy. Interest rates are an all-time low. There's so much inventory to choose from. I mean, it might not be hot new inventory, but things are coming out every day. So get working with a realtor, make sure that you're keeping your eye on the market. There's tons of opportunity out there for you, and you hold all the power. You have the negotiating power as a buyer. If you're a seller, my suggestion would be not to wait for the global pandemic to pan out, because nobody knows how long that's going to be. And I think a lot of sellers do have the mindset that they're going to wait. And that's going to create is a flood of new listings coming onto the market. And now you're going to be competing with a lot more people. Real estate is an essential service because people require shelter. It's something that's going to happen today, tomorrow, yesterday. People are always going to be moving. If you're a seller, listen to your realtor. You know, now's not the time to push pricing and see if we can get it for a little bit higher. Get rid of that listing and become the buyer, right? You're going to be buying in the same market that you're selling. So even if you're taking a hit on your sale, you get to become the buyer, and then you get the power.
Absolutely. So for my buyers, I would say be a bit more aware of what your life is going to be like. And one of the things that I tell all my buyers is that home ownership is supposed to elevate your life and it's supposed to make it better. So you need to figure out what is it going to be that's going to make your life better, and kind of figure that out through the 3 different lists. What are your must-haves? What are your wish lists? What are your deal breakers? And this is the time to reevaluate those kind of different categories and what you're really looking in, whether it is a home office or outdoor space or just different aspects that you want to be able to see in that property. And this is really going to change that. And then I think that when you look at the sellers, I've been saying it for the last year and a half that typically real estate is location, location, location. I don't think that's true anymore. I think it's more price and motivation. You'll have buyers that will say, well, it's the same house 2 blocks away, not as great of a location, but I can save 25K. I'm going to do that. So you need to be really strategic with how you go to market with your pricing, but also you've got to be the best offering. You know, if there's 5 houses that are all very similar in stature, but one's a better price point and shows better, it's going to win hands down. So sellers have to be even more careful with how they prepare their home for sale and listen to the advice of a professional, because we see these things on a daily basis and we know what the buyers are going to say when they walk into a bad offering.
Yeah, they kind of stole everything from there from me.
Thanks for letting me go first, guys.
I think I agree with all of them. You know, buyers, like, you do have the buying power right now, especially, you know, in terms of negotiation, in terms of pricing, or even after an offer is written and you do property inspection and there's something wrong with the property that you want the sellers to fix, so you can negotiate a bit more on that part too as well. And like Brittney said, there's a lot on the market, but, you know, unfortunately there's not a lot that's like good on the market, I think.
A lot of quality,
yeah, quality,
or a lot of quantity, not quality.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, you do have the time and to look carefully in terms of what you want, and it's kind of a time where everything's slowed down, where you can have some time to adjust what your wants and needs are, in terms of that, and you do have the time, so you're not in a rush and to make a decision in terms of what houses you want. Or, you know, if a home office is important to you or the outdoor space is important to you, you do have time to look for that. And I think it's a good time to reflect too in terms of what you want, instead of just pushing towards what you think is great in a home, right, for yourself. And in terms of sellers, yeah, I like I said before, if you're actually going to list now, then you have to be realistic in terms of pricing and motivation, like Carlin said. And really, like, most of the time houses sell because they're priced well, right? And so price is really, like in a buyer's market, part of it is a determinant factor, you know, if you do want to sell your home in this market.
I think price is even more important these days with the amount of job loss and the way the economy just naturally has been in Alberta. People are really crunching those numbers at the end of the day and seeing what is affordable every month. Another thing that we kind of should add in this conversation is price points. So, you know, if you're looking for a property in Calgary under $450, you might still be in a very competitive price point, because, you know, things in that price range are still very affordable for the average Calgarian. If you're looking, you know, over 600, something closer to 800, 900,000, it's a completely different world. So, you know, you might still be running into multiple offers. Don't be shocked. But if you're under that 500,000 price point, especially in the inner city, there's still activity happening.
Well, there's always going to be a market for it, you know, and when things do get tough, it's the same thing as restaurants. When the economy gets a little bit rough, people just kind of downgrade what they're looking for. Instead of going for a $100 night out, they might go for a $50 night out. Same thing with real estate. If they were maybe going to qualify for $700,000 and get into an inner city semi-detached property, maybe now they've got to be staying around that $500,000 mark. So they might push out to one of the boroughs or the suburbs and get a bit more value for their money. And they might find themselves in competing offers, because everyone, whether you're moving up or you're moving down, that's that kind of benchmark in the middle where you can get both sides of it, right? So things still just move very quickly in that price range.
Right. Yeah, and that actually leads me to one of my last questions, and that would be, what sort of advice would you have from your learnings, either during this time where digital has been so important, or even previous to COVID-19? What would be your advice to other businesses or different industries on sort of innovating or staying afloat during this difficult time?
Yeah, like I mentioned it before, keep physically distancing, do not social distance yourself, keep that online presence. We're in front of our phones and our computers more than ever, especially now. So keep your head up, push through. I mean, adapt or get left behind as well, right?
That's a better way of putting it than I would have had to say, because there's
Yeah,
a phrase for many years, evolve or die. Like, you've got to have
yeah.
evolution of what you're doing, given the circumstances. Maybe not the best one to have, but I think it still rings true. And I think one of the key things right now that we are seeing across all different brands is authenticity. You know, you have to be more authentic than ever right now. And I know both of these folks down here, and they're pretty much in that same court as me, and we like to do things our way. But if you appear opportunistic right now, whether you're a business or a person, whatever you're doing, it's so much easier to spot from the general population, because it is a very vulnerable time. So if there was ever a time to focus on changing your messaging around what you think is your true self and the value that you bring and the things that you stand for, if you haven't been doing that in the past, this is that kind of hard reset where the rest of the world is taking note of what their new priorities need to be. And we are seeing that shift back to family time and connecting and wanting those different availabilities of love. You know, connect with your kind of core values and re-hit that and be caring, because right now caring is winning.
I totally think so too. I think like our industry, we've been adapting or innovating for like a very long time now. So, you know, and it's not going to be the back to normal again. You know, it's going to be a new normal where this is probably going to go on for quite a long time. And if you're not going to adjust your business, then you're not really going to survive. Like for example, like restaurants, you know, it's probably going to be takeout for a long time, and so you have to adjust your business to handle that, right? And I don't know if we'll sit together and like, you know, a big table and be able to eat for a long time. And it's not like if we can or cannot, but it's more of like the fear of it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in China, you know, things are opening, but people aren't coming out, and small businesses are still, you know, suffering because people just are scared to come out. And I think that's going to be something like here, where restaurants are open, but are you going to feel comfortable coming out? So I think you have to kind of just adjust and see how long this will last for. But example, like adapt to survive. I think that's what and if you listen to your customers or your clients, then, you know, listen to what they want, then you'll survive. Like for example, you know, if your customers are doing takeouts and you're adjusting to that, or something like that, you know, you'll make it in this or in the business. But and if you don't adjust, then I don't know, I don't think you'll make it.
Yeah, now's definitely not the time to cut back on your marketing. If you have
Mhm.
downtime, I mean, enroll in that online course and educate yourself, you know, grow your knowledge, whatever industry you're in. That's a great way to better yourself during the downtime that we have right now.
Finally, with Pride in Business, of course, we're all about our LGBTQ plus community. So I wanted to get an idea of how each of you is staying connected or interacting with the community during this time.
I'm still on my social media all the time. You guys can follow me at Brittney MacMillan on Instagram, Calgary Living in Facebook. And I'm just really looking forward to when we can get together again. And I'm really looking forward to another Pride in Business event.
Definitely missing all you folks. It's the best event of the month, of the quarter, whenever they happen. You know, I know a lot of us go to a lot of different events because that face-to-face time is great for us, and there's something very special about what you've done. So we definitely miss that. Just like Brittney said, a lot of social interaction and commenting on a lot more statuses and making phone calls and talking about just random things and changing that conversation. I'm on Instagram, Carlin the Realtor, basically across everything, and I do a lot more of that now. One thing that I think is kind of neat is that we're seeing a bit of a shift with a lot of the nonprofits around Calgary. You know, this is my second year co-chairing the Splash of Red Gala for HIV Community Link, and we had to unfortunately cancel our event. It was supposed to be this Saturday coming up, and we can't have it now. So what we have done is we've kind of moved towards some different ideas around what we're going to do for the AIDS Walk, you know, and reaching out to our kind of core group of volunteers and those who are involved within our charities and our events, and saying like, what can we do differently, or how can we evolve around this? So I think there's kind of a new sense of collaboration coming, and a lot of people are learning new skills right now. So how can we as a community support each other and really get back to that? And those are some of the conversations that I think are being really critical and helping to pivot into the next phase of whatever this looks like.
I totally agree too. I think during this time, you just have to stay connected with like your community, and even on social, or even like just a simple message to see how like you're doing. Like I send messages to like my community, like my friends all the time who are in the LGBT community, and just to see how they're doing. Right? It's not just and I think that the point of reaching out and just being there for somebody is very important during this time. And it's not just like because I want your business or anything like that. It's more of, you know, just to have an interaction. Like, and Carlin does like a lot of stuff with the you know, LGBTQ community in there, and you know, and very respectful in that too. And like, and what he said, more like learning about different ways to collaborate during this time. And no, it won't be the normal one where we can get together during events like Pride in Business, and learning how we can get together as a community in terms of doing that. And I think this is something that's great too, where, you know, we're on a Zoom call and we're in different places, but we're still collaborating with each other in terms of that. And I think this is something that is going to be a pretty like the new normal until further notice, I think. And I think it's great, and then like we're reaching out to each other and just seeing how business is doing and trying to support each other, right? And I think that's also the same with Pride in Business. I'm sure you guys, you know, are figuring out ways how you can still connect with the community and doing events like this until things get back to where we can actually have events where we can, you know, socialize and network again.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I know we're all looking forward to that point where we can come back together and bring the community together in a physical space once again. But I think as a whole, we've gone through a number of challenging times, and this is no different, and it's something that we'll all rally together around. And on that note, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming and joining us for this sort of round table, as it were, and appreciate you taking the time to share your insight. So once again, I had Brittney MacMillan, Carlin Koster, and Jerry Ty, three amazing Calgary realtors, great pillars of the LGBTQ plus community in Calgary as well. So thank you all so much, and I hope you take care during the rest of this time.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.